all in. I'm a fan of the Jets. I'm a fan of the Jets. The Jets. The Jets. Why this team? The Jets. Ah, the Jets! The Jets!
Greetings to all. Welcome to 2022. Omicron is on the run, and away it went. But oops, there goes gravity, and here comes a new variant. Omaha, Corona, Hut 1, Hut 2, nothing infects the Super Bowl, and nothing stops football.
Racism, greed, trauma to brain and spine. And yet, I cannot look away. Heroes are dead. Science has their heads.
I thought for sure if Billy Gill was talking music today, it would be because he wanted to talk about the halftime show, Rihanna and Friends.
Yes. Wait, is it at Friends? Are there people coming out with Rihanna?
You know
They said
someone's gonna
and
come
Rock
out.
Nation.
Always Friends, yes.
No, I'm
Is
fine.
Drake gonna show up?
I'm fine with
He's
Friends.
not a Rock Nation.
Yeah, but they have
Jay-Z.
some songs together.
But Rock Nation's been producing the last few Super Bowl halftime
Correct.
shows, right?
I'm
So-
fine with Friends. Let's not take away from Rihanna. That's my concern.
Obviously, yes.
Yeah.
We agree on that.
What a roller coaster of emotions for me in terms of the halftime show. I thought Tay-Tay was going to do it, and then she wasn't going to do it, and then Rihanna. I mean, guys, if we're going to the Super Bowl this year, I have bad news. I will be staying for the game, at least for the halftime show.
That's not bad news.
And
Why
I'll
is
see
that
you
bad
Monday or
news?
Tuesday. Well, because I'm not going to be in on Monday if we're traveling back on Sunday. I'm not catching on a bird to come to Monday's
This
show
is-
after Rihanna. I can't.
Billy, this is the first time they've had
Need
a
a
musical
day?
performance catered to me since 2020. Like, it's been a long wait to have something like the Shakira J-Lo halftime show, and I think this is going to do it. I think this is going to do it.
Okay, but I wanted to start there, and I thought Billy would want to start there, but he was talking to me instead about Lee Greenwood for some reason. And
Sort of.
Just wearing us out on Lee Greenwood.
Well,
I mean,
he's just said the YouTube hole that Billy falls into has a lot of curious. He'll fall into for hours, and he ended up on Lee Greenwood. And so, where I thought you might want to start today's show talking about Rihanna and the halftime show, and I don't know if you guys know the history of the halftime show, but In Living Color with Jim Carrey, like it used to be these silly Disney things that were just like, acts on the field that was corny. And then In Living Color on another station was like, come over here for the halftime show. We've got something that's edgy and not quite that lame. And then Michael Jackson is the next halftime show. And the next 30 years of halftime shows are the epic things.
Don't
you see
take
now.
credit away from WWF's halftime heat where Mankind beat The Rock in a Falls Count Anywhere match for the WWF title.
So now you can't tune away during halftime, and I don't think anyone even counter programs against it. But where did you?
No, there
end
was
up-
that celebrity deathmatch thing that happened at halftime one year. Yeah. There was also the
LFL for a while.
lingerie bowl.
Yeah. In the
happened.
Legends Football League.
Yeah, the Taylor Swift thing was interesting because how great is your career going when you get offered the Super Bowl and you're like, I'll get around to it when I re-record my first 6 albums
She'll
fully.
be offered again.
It better not be next year. Next year there is a layup. Next year it's in Las Vegas. If it's not the Killers, they got a real problem because it's a band from Las Vegas.
I thought you were thinking Wayne Newton.
No, that would be amazing. They'll probably bring him
I was
in.
thinking
They will
Britney.
No,
bring
they,
them
they,
in.
would,
Trot 'em
they would
out.
absolutely
Yes,
bring in
yes,
Wayne Newton.
Yeah.
Celine Dion, Britney, all the
All the
artists
great-
with residencies, Adele.
Which one's
Chris
still
Angel?
with Siegfried and
my
Brennan
Roy?
freak-
Teller.
No, they're not with us.
Oh,
Both of them? No, one of them's still around,
I think
isn't it?
I think they're both gone now.
Really?
I think they might be both
Don't
gone.
tell
Is
me
that
that
a
on a
$50
Monday.
fine?
Confident, Mike?
No,
You're
not
killing
on a
both
Monday.
of them.
One is
You're
definitely-
killing
I think
both
they're
of them.
both- I
You're
think they're both
risking
gone.
a $50 fine.
What do
yeah.
I get if
Nothing.
I'm right?
You get
Nothing?
nothing.
You
get
That's why
nothing.
it's not
Yeah,
worth
I
the
like
risk.
these
It's
odds.
not
You
worth
save
the
money.
risk.
Bring it.
You've had a
They're
rough
both
day.
dead.
You've had a rough day today, rough
think just
weekend.
one.
Is it done?
I think they're both dead.
Okay, but if not, you're risking a $50 fine.
I know this.
I'm not
I
positive.
think they're both gone. It seems like it. Well, why-
They're both dead.
well, let's not. Come on.
Told you.
Guy Fieri halftime show in Vegas.
Ooh. It's got to be the Killers.
Donkey sauce.
Our generation has very little in terms of lasting songs that are stadium anthems. We've got Mr. Brightside, Seven Nation Army, and now Peppas. We should be proud of that.
Blue Man Group could be there,
Ooh, I
right?
like
There's
that.
going to be a circ,
Yep.
something going
You
on.
can do all of this, but it has to be the Killers. So I'm sorry, Taylor Swift. You just delayed this by 2 years.
The Killers are a bit different than all of these other people we're talking about.
It's in Vegas. They're the greatest band from Vegas, and they've got a
I-
very high Q score. Everybody likes the Killers. Put the Killers out there.
Regardless, Lee Greenwood is the YouTube rabbit hole that Billy fell down, and I don't know the backstory here. We will
Well, I
get-
can tell you why if you want to know, or we can get to it later. It's up to you. Your show.
Well, that's where I thought we were going to start, but then you got all excited about Rihanna when you were talking to me about Lee Greenwood.
Well, because what happened is that last week or the week before, I was talking to Amin about national anthems, and we were talking about how the Canadian national anthem at hockey games in particular does it right, where they kind of take over and everybody's singing and all this stuff, right? So I started going down my rabbit hole of Canadian national anthems, and then I saw when the Canadians, there was an issue with a microphone, and they were singing the U.S. national anthem after something happened in the U.S., I don't remember, and the microphone stopped working, and then the people of Canada started singing the U.S. national anthem, and they knew all the words, and I was like, that would never happen here. Like, nobody in America would sing the Canadian national anthem. But I found that there was one where it kind of happened at a hockey game after something happened in Canada, and then I started going down, like, memorable things, and I was like, oh, let me see, like, 9/11 national anthems and all this stuff, and then there's a George Bush pitch came up, of course, because that always comes up, and then I was seeing, like, all these different things, and then somehow I stumbled upon Lee Greenwood singing God Bless the USA live in the 2001 World Series, which is, like, weird, because it's not, like, the national anthem or God Bless America, it's just him singing a song about America, but they brought him on the field to do it, right? And I don't look. I made the mistake when someone died. I don't remember who it was. Died, and I mistook him for the one that sings center field. Fogarty, remember? He's still
John
with
Fogerty.
us.
Still
John
with us.
Fogerty, yeah.
Yeah, but I mistook him for the one
Classic.
from Gainesville. Remember him that they
Yep.
sing "Won't Back Down"? That one. I don't
Tom
remember.
Petty.
Tom Petty.
Yeah.
I mistook the two of them, and I didn't know if Lee Greenwood was in the same family of this, right?
As Tom Petty?
Well, I don't know. That's the
Jesus.
thing. I'm just admitting to you I don't know these things. That's
What's
why
wrong with you?
I was coming, guys.
That's why he's asking.
I'm just here asking questions off air,
Who
okay?
is Lee Greenwood, and why were you bothering me before the show, desperate to talk about Lee Greenwood?
I was trying to learn about Lee Greenwood because you guys, no offense, are older, and you guys know about the Tom Pettys and all those people. So I was asking you if Lee Greenwood is like this big known person or if it's just a one-hit wonder. Because when I was watching the performance of God Bless the USA on the field, I was like, he's just talking. He's not really singing, and they presented him as this big thing. He's like Lee Green, and he came out in this big American flag jacket, and I was like, is he really as renowned as we're making it sound, or is it just the one song that we play when fireworks are going off?
It is the name of a fictional character I would create if I needed a 9/11 hero in U.S. garb to come out
Or a golf
and
movie.
speak something emotionally. Ladies and gentlemen, Lee Greenwood. If it was a fictional character, I needed to just wrap in the flag. If he wasn't famous, he should be, just for the name. I need patriotism here. Lee, would you go out there and give it to us? But maybe he is famous. I do not know.
He was on the National Council on the Arts.
So you ended up in a place where you were expecting song or operatic song, emotional song, and you got a guy who came out and just read.
No, he was like doing his own spin on his own, which is weird. It was his own song, but he was just kind of like, yeah, but he was like talking his way through it.
That's
it was
classic
weird.
Greenwood.
Yeah, maybe like Taylor Swift. He doesn't own the original masters, so he had to rework it.
Interesting.
This is a strange...
My wife asked me, why are you doing this, by the way, in case you
fair
guys were wondering.
question.
It
I feel
was.
like she asks you that a lot.
Yeah.
I have been surprised here, Stugotz. I don't know what triggered this conversation or the resulting text or tweet, but somebody sent into the show based on something we were talking about. The James Harrison touchdown in the Super Bowl is way overrated. 2 blocks in the back on that play, very obvious ones.
He's that guy.
It was my least favorite Super Bowl moment.
That guy's been holding on to that take for
Forever.
10,
But why
15
now?
years.
You're watching all 22 there? Like,
Why now, though?
Dan mentioned it last week
Oh.
to me when we were talking about me watching an egg peeling video on TikTok.
I'm going to rewatch the play right now
I'm
and see
gonna
if
go
this guy
rewatch
is
the
right.
egg peeling video.
Well, you do
Why
that
is
and
what
I'll
I
watch
watch
this.
weird?
As tired as James Harrison was at the end of that 99-yard return, was as tired as all the Buffalo Bills receivers were by the end of that game.
There is a lot of analysis happening after 3 games. They look like the most overwhelming team, and then they come to a swamp and they try to play in a marsh, and they play for 40 minutes, and they have 700 plays, and at the end of it, they're all vomiting over each other with heat stroke. Dolphins, Tua, yeah!
It is a very curious strategy to give that overwhelming offense
Oh, he's right.
that is a Super Bowl favorite. You're rewatching the James Harrison?
I actually have 3 blocks in the back. I do. I mean, it was chaos. Harrison was tired. He was just trying to get to the end zone. Everyone was tired. The refs were running 100 yards. No one saw
Larry
a thing.
Fitzgerald
But
with
there
an
were
amazing
3.
play.
Yes.
I thought Larry Fitzgerald was somehow more impressive than James Harrison just because of how badly he wanted to tackle James Harrison through all the illegality that happened in his wake.
It's
Oh,
like
please.
Nathan Fielder came in and gave the midweek speech to the Dolphins. All right, guys, here's the plan. We're going to give the most prolific offense in the NFL 180 plays, but it's going to be 120 degrees outside.
You are so right about Fitzgerald. He did not give up on the play. He almost had him. He was like a yard away from winning the game. I mean,
He would have been the MVP if they had
He
won.
would have. Yes.
He had that moment,
Mhm.
You
as you
guys-
so correctly pointed out last week.
I won't go through all of the details, but at the highest place in sports, when Muhammad Ali and George Foreman are fighting, and it's super, super hot, and it's in the 8th round, and George Foreman is the scariest person in the world, and he's just punching Ali, and then in the 8th round, Ali is still talking to him and says, "Is that all you got, George?" while he's leaning against the ropes. And when Foreman tells the story later, becoming not Ali, he became George Foreman, great, sold grills, but wasn't Ali. The reaction to the question from Ali, "Is that all you got, George?" was, "Yeah, pretty much." And that's what happened to the Bills. Like 4th down. All right, we'll keep slinging it. All right, 10, 15 yards. You're only going to give us 9 yards at a time. All right, I'll keep getting it this way. Okay, it's going to take us 18 plays. We're going to have the ball for 28 minutes. Is that all you got, Josh? Yeah, pretty much.
You want me to throw 5 more yards? I have 2
can't do
yards
it.
left
I
in me.
can't do it.
I mean, 2
That's
yards.
it. Look, it's hot out here. And McDaniel, he is a genius because he knew the sun. He knew what was going to happen out here. I got Diggs. He cannot move. He's throwing up in the huddle. Because why? Because we're playing in a swamp. And their whole strategy is just Josh is going to punch himself out. Suntor is going to rise up on his back legs and punch himself out. And 60 passes in, he did. It took all 60 of them. It took a punt to the butt. The Dolphins moving backwards. Terrified of all Josh Allen things. But at the end, the horse just died at the finish line.
Yeah.
Just died. It's more of a horse. I want the horse on my team. I trust the horse, even though it's 0-6 in one-score games. And only the Texans are 0-6 in one-score games in the last couple of years. But I trust the horse. I want the horse on my team until it's the Heat. You know what I've just realized? The Dolphins need to bring this game to Miami in the playoffs.
They have to win the division.
You've got to win all of it.
Yes.
And we can't rule it out that it won't be 95 degrees in January.
It most likely will.
More likely than not.
Could it be 80 in Buffalo in December? I mean, who knows?
I think everything's on the table right now.
Did any of you guys have in the make or break season? So I mean, we're only 3 games in, but it's all chips to the middle of the table. We're going to be totally unreasonable about everything happening around football. Everyone's going to get hurt, and it's going to be all in on Jalen Hurts and Tua. All in one
on
year.
the same team.
Nick Saban's pretty good.
All year. No,
Jesus.
But did you guys have this is what I'm saying. Everyone's all in on Tua, Hurts. You get this year for us to decide whether you're a quarterback or not, and they both start 3-0 similar ways.
I mean, the Eagles are a very talented team. I don't think anyone expected this from the Dolphins because of the 3 games on their schedule to start this season.
My point is it's the same story after 3 games. The story of the sport is the 2 quarterbacks from Alabama who were all or nothing at the position that we're changing now. Hey, it's time for Brady and Rodgers to get out at some point here. They got to get out at some point, even though Brady's still doing it at the end. Are these guys the new model of we'll go smaller, we'll go skinnier, we'll throw to spots, we'll have unbelievable receivers that run slants on the goal line against Washington, and he's throwing it behind on purpose because you got the slant covered, but he can throw it in a place where Smith is so good, you're not going to be able to cover him. Have so much talent that you throw to spots and go accuracy. Like, that's what's happening in the precision of the game, is it not?
I don't think it's the new model. I think it's a model. I think there are teams that are going to still try to beat you with Josh Allen or Joe Burrow or guys like that, but it is a model to kind of follow for other NFL teams. They didn't start it.
But again, those 2 guys, it's value at the position, okay? It's
having those guys on rookie
deals. No, but it's
deals,
playing math and data, and it's playing Wall Street comes to football, and we're going on at 4th down, and can we get value at the position? It's not just having a great one, it's having a great one at value, so you can win the math, the finances of the sport.
I believe Jalen Hurts is costing against the cap the Eagles $1.6 million this year.
I do think
That's
it's
absurd.
a new model. I do think it's a new model because the rookie wage scale is still new, and you have teams approaching it a different way. Mike Brown over in Cincinnati, I know they're super loaded on offense, and you try to go with it with the offensive line. You're seeing mixed results. You watch the Chargers, and it jumps off the screen how not explosive that team is. Even with Keenan Allen out there, he's not this explosive wide receiver. They are very slow. What the Eagles and Dolphins did, I think, is something to be learned from in the future, which is go all in loading up the talent, but make sure you hedge your bets and you have draft room to make a move in the following year's draft in case they're not the guy. Most teams maybe divest themselves from these quarterbacks and try to upgrade. We've seen that approach, especially with the Cleveland Browns. I like what the Eagles and Dolphins did. Let's remove all doubt. We have questions about these guys. Let's figure out what happens when we give them a Hill. Let's find out what happens when we give them an A.J. Brown.
Each team has one of those 2 Alabama quarterbacks. Each team has one of those Alabama wide receivers. Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle. Like, think about how talented those teams were and how good those players are in the NFL. It's amazing. Alabama receivers, you see every Sunday scoring touchdowns in the NFL.
The Rams proved to us, too, like, draft picks kind of don't matter, right? Like, you're just going to load up on offense, you're going to load up on weapons, and you're going to have a quarterback that can get you a certain place. Like, Jalen Hurts has turned into a really good quarterback. His development from last year to this year is, like, it's astonishing.
Oh, but you say draft picks don't matter. Let's see what the Chiefs do with them, right? Because they don't have value anymore at quarterback. They've got quarterback, not value at quarterback. And as nerdball takes over the sport, I was just talking about this with some people last week, just the differences in the baseball clubhouse between 20 years ago, guys sitting there for 95 minutes smoking cigarettes in front of their locker. Now it's marching toward the military facility to see if 3 feet to my left, practices, meetings. We've got to do the data crunch. It's all about money, and Wall Street has come to the sport. Now you got nerdball among the coaches. You got these young guys that it's not about whatever Mike McCarthy's doing. Mike McCarthy's got to keep up because, McDaniel's here and doing it differently with speed and value at quarterback. And can the organization be smarter than other organizations who are still doing it with great quarterbacks who are expensive and don't allow Joe Burrow to have an offensive line, so he's playing. And all of you're watching the sports, all are changing. They're all getting smarter. They're all going toward the money. They're all going like, wait a minute, if it's salary cap, do you think there's winning in the margin on being smarter than someone else when it comes to the finances of this? If you're going to salary cap, not let Jerry Jones be an idiot with the money and Dan Snyder be an idiot with the money. Where I got to win is I got to be smarter than other organizations about how I spend and how I value my quarterback. Mahomes, are you worth $400 million to me? Yes, of course. But at what cost? With them, not much. Burrow, already you're seeing it. Okay, you got him receivers, but you guys don't have anyone who can block for him.
But he also has Chase on one of those rookie contracts, and the Dolphins also have Waddle on one of those rookie contracts. Those two teams have value everywhere.
But it's not anymore. In a salary cap sport, you got to be smarter about what you value. Like, the whole thing is changing right in front of us. All of it, the precision of all of it. It's not just where quarterbacks throw, it's where the general manager spends the money.
Yeah, and it comes from ownership because the Bengals had the right situation to be incredibly aggressive. Bills had the quarterback; they still find a way to find Von Miller and make their defensive line overwhelming. You cited what the Rams have done over the last few years, which is go for broke. And you have this team that made it to a Super Bowl against all odds, and they have the young wide receiver, the young quarterback, an electric running back at times, and they still don't do enough. Like Lyle Collins is a plan when it was all there for them, and it goes back to a historically cheap owner.
Does it not make sense to you, Stugotz, if the lesson's not been taught? The Seahawks could have been a dominant dynasty with Russell Wilson at value. They were great on defense. Russell Wilson eventually burned up everything there in Denver, and now you're looking at it in Denver like, wait a minute, do I need to be given that much for 7 years to a quarterback when I need all sorts of other things and all these other people are getting smarter? All the McVays are now spreading out all over the place, and everybody's going for it on fourth down, and no one's getting any real advantages from the dumb shit that they've been doing with math in this sport forever.
I'm very confused as to what's happening with Denver, and I know that they won by 1 point, but that's not what you expect. That team is loaded on offense. Sutton, Judy, the two running backs in Gordon and Williams, a quarterback that you thought could just walk in there and you let him cook and he'll be explosive. I thought it was hyperbolic, and I was just doing a hot take when I said Cooper Rush might be the best primetime quarterback this week. It feels more true now after that Sunday nighter.
You still are selling me on Cooper Rush.
He loves Cooper Rush.
Well, it's not so much. No. The take here isn't that I love Cooper Rush. I think he's serviceable, and we'll find out tonight. It's what's going on with Russell Wilson. Because that looks really bad through 3 games.
But, Mike, the absurdity of what I'm about to say is that given the finances of the sport, whatever the difference is in dollars between whatever the actual difference is in value between Russell Wilson and Cooper Rush, it matters more now than it ever has, because I never understand. Think about what you're watching yesterday and the stupidity of keeping prices so tight that the rosters are 53 men. Like, you can have 100 men on the roster. Everybody can afford it. They don't want to spend on it. The sport is making plenty of money. You can have 100 men on the roster. It's okay. You don't have to actually keep it to 53 collectively bargain.
I think the interesting position to look out for in terms of value is wide receiver. Like, the Packers let Davante Adams go. He's with the Raiders. They're 0-3. The Packers are 2-1. Like, I'm not saying they're as good without Davante Adams, but like with the Dolphins, you have Waddle on a rookie deal. You have Tyreek Hill on a massive contract, and eventually you're going to have to pay Waddle.
I actually think
I don't know if they'll be able to pay Waddle and Tua.
I actually think that the wide receiver.
Don't do that after 3 games, please.
I don't know.
It is a concern.
7-1,
small window.
Yeah.
Despite Davante Adams being 0-3 right now, I think that the wide receiver market has actually justified itself a little bit because Christian Kirk is playing really well. Tyreek Hill has certainly changed this offense for the better. Just because Davante Adams is 0-3, I don't think you have to look at it. I think the most interesting thing is what Jerry Jones did, because Jerry Jones gave all that money to Amari Cooper, gave all that money to Ezekiel Elliott, finally gave all that money to Dak, didn't have a lot of room to improve that offense, lost out on Von Miller, had to lose Randy Gregory. And it's why he cracked the door open on there being a quarterback controversy in Dallas, saying that a quarterback competition is totally in play because he's got all those sunk costs with Dak Prescott. If the difference between Cooper Rush and Dak Prescott is negligible, let me start loading up on those skill guys again, because I got this money sitting in there with Ezekiel Elliott, who at times doesn't look as good as Tony Pollard. I had to let go of Amari Cooper, who still has good football left, had over 100 yards on Thursday night. Last 2 games, he's regretting paying that much money to a quarterback, and it's why he's welcomed this headache of a quarterback controversy.
You know who has a quarterback window right now? The Jaguars. They do. They have Lawrence on that rookie contract, and Trevor Lawrence is really good. Watch out for the Jags.
Are you sure, though? Because, Tony came in here telling you the Jags are good, and you're here a couple of weeks late on all the takes, Stugotz, on all of them, including it was awfully hot out there on Sunday. You're arriving.
I'm not certain we should be doing this on Sundays. I mean, I was concerned for the Bills and the Dolphins yesterday.
My point is you're arriving like 2 weeks late on the things that the observations you're making. Yeah. Now Trevor Lawrence is indeed flatly good this is the first time time you're saying this.
Well, they finally got a coach who knows how to use him. You roll him out on the run. That's when he's at his best. Everyone knows that about Trev.
I got to give credit where it's due here and find the person who reported that yesterday, this happened yesterday, Urban Meyer was tied for 5th all-time on Jags wins.
No way.
As
I
a
think
coach.
Will Brinson tweeted that.
It was Will
Come
Brinson.
on.
Thank you. Yes, 5th all-time after yesterday's victory. So we're
Ring
now
of honor,
We're
or
now
what?
in on the Jags. I just want to make sure I have this right.
Top 5.
We're in on the Jags and Trevor Lawrence because Justin Herbert had to take so many shots from a doctor who's being sued by Tyrod Taylor to play yesterday that the Chargers looked slow.
Yes. So now
Okay,
we're in on Trevor
okay, so
Lawrence,
we're
and we're
in-
not certain about Justin Herbert.
We're not. We're back.
Jury's still out.
We're back
Yeah.
to not certain on Justin Herbert.
That's the NFL, Dano.
Stugotz, there was one play yesterday where I saw Herbert's head. He was sacked, and the back of his helmet just hit violently the turf. And I thought to myself, on his behalf, as he plays shot up on ribs, his ribs all shot up with God knows what. I'm like, why are you doing that? Like, the pressure around this is so big that you got to get out there for game 3 and do that against Jacksonville, where you can't play that position. Like, come on, man. You can't play that position with ribs shot up. What are we asking these people to do?
Or a back problem, too.
But how stupid is that?
I mean, he made one of the great throws I've ever seen. He was fine. I mean, jury's still out. Checking Urban's record with
You
Jacksonville
saying
real
Jury
quick.
or like Jerry Judy? Like Jerry?
Wait, Urban had 2
Jerry
wins. I mean,
That's the joke.
I know, but I mean, 2.
I think Gerald Everett might be the fastest Charger right now on the outside.
Really?
Yeah, I think at this point in their careers, he might be as fast in a straight line race as Mike Williams.
Get out of here.
Gerald Everett entered the league, and that was all people talked about him, his speed at the position.
Mike-
Now he's wearing number 7, so he looks extra fast.
Mike Williams has always appeared slow only in the stupid context of what number 1 wide receiver speed is.
Right,
He's
ball
always Mike Williams has always seemed unbelievably athletic by any measurement throughout humanity's time, but slow if the measurement is only Justin Jefferson.
Well, I like how Miami has built their team for this situation. You have like those old AFC Central teams build up their teams because we're going to run the ball and play hard-nosed defense because you're going to be playing in the snow, and that's how you win. There was a play that was blown dead where Tyreek Hill looked faster than Usain Bolt because it was like that fumble where he turned the corner and everyone else was standing still, and it jumped off the screen how explosively fast that is a very hard sport to look extra fast in. The DBs are just as fast in that sport. They're supposed to be. And Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle make them look slow.
Jessica, were you looking over your right shoulder because of how loud Billy's cleaning and cleansing of his nose was and the blowing of his nose?
How sick everyone's been around me the past 3 weeks.
No, I moved to the corner. I tried to hide behind
He's
the
got
screen and
sinusitis.
everything.
There's something wrong with that.
sinusitis for like 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
I suffer from that. I'm a victim.
Yeah, but he said he wasn't feeling well today. I mean, he did say
did?
that. Yeah,
Who?
he acknowledged that
Billy.
to me.
I have Mucinex DM.
Right.
Oh my
What do you want me to
God.
do? Half the people are
The
out
pill
today.
was
I couldn't
huge,
stay
by the
home.
way.
Stay home if you're
I-
sick.
Thank you for playing hurt.
No, I had to
Yeah.
come for my
that
team,
is
man.
not. That's like I'm not even joking right now.
Yeah.
Do not come into work if you're sick.
I'm not sick.
He's
He's
not.
fine.
He's good.
He's
You have
fine.
Mucinex.
No,
DM.
it's sinusitis. It's different.
Yeah, I'm not
Sinusitis
sick.
is
You don't
right.
understand.
If I get sick once, it takes me like 2 months to get that shit out.
Yeah.
Do you want to do Refran del Dia here, Tony? You can't just do that with the audience. Nobody.
No, the audience knows sinusitis, Dan.
Everybody knows it's worldwide.
It's worldwide. Yeah, it's a worldwide problem, actually. Sinusitis, for those that don't know, is sinusitis.
Yeah.
There's no real science behind it. It's just sinusitis.
Mm-hmm.
Billy and I have
Sinusitis.
Yeah, like an itis, but sinus.
Yeah.
Billy and I have toddlers.
Exactly.
We're gonna be sick for the next 6 years.
100% right. I make it hand, foot, mouth. I don't know if I'm old enough to, or
You
it's
can.
gonna happen.
You can.
Can
It's
I?
gonna happen. Oh, you haven't had it yet?
I don't
Buckle
think
up,
so.
Buckaroo.
I thought that was only a kid thing. Adults
No.
can get hand, foot,
Yep.
mouth.
Oh yeah, totally.
Huh.
The
Happened to my
Mets
friend Jose.
all had it like 3 years ago.
Really?
Yes.
Huh.
I didn't Syndergaard have it, Stugotz?
I believe he did. Thor, yeah.
Happened to my friend Jose, is what you
He did.
said?
I believe it.
Did. Kids gave it to him.
Kids are just filled with germs, Dan.
Oh,
Yeah.
And they're also so weak.
Yeah.
Get it together, kids.
it
Stop
together.
getting sick, and then they get everybody else sick. They go in, and it's like this. Any little thing gets them sick, and then they're sick for like weeks on end, and then it goes away, and then it comes back. Fever, no fever. It's like, let me sleep. Why do I have to keep getting up at 3 a.m. to give you these cold baths because you have a fever again? Enough. No one's giving me a bath when I have a fever.
But like our jobs, respectfully, are not important enough where you have to come into work sick. I'm not sure which jobs are, but certainly not this job.
Clearly, quarterback for the Chargers.
Quarterback for the Chargers. Social media director for the Le Batard Show. These are president of the United States.
Does anyone in our audience care that the Washington Commanders football team has had 13 executives leave in the last 18 months?
Nope.
Does anyone care? Or are we just going to keep analyzing Washington through the prism of they're not as good as the Eagles and Carson Wentz seems to not be what we should be doing there?
I think at halftime, they had negative 16 passing yards?
Mike Fuentes told me that he had Carson Wentz playing for him, and he had negative 18 points in fantasy yesterday.
Wentz was off to a good start, but that's classic Wentz right there.
No. Oh, good start in fantasy.
Yeah, good start, and then he'll have one of those bad games, and he had it yesterday.
I don't play fantasy. That's a real thing. You could get negative. Your quarterback can be negative.
I had never heard
of course, yes.
negative 18 points at one point in the game.
Yeah, there was a legendary Monday Nighter where a bunch of people went in with pretty commanding fantasy football leads, and Rex Grossman lost them the game.
So he had 211 yards. He had no touchdowns, so no points there, but he was sacked 9 times, and I'm guessing that Fuentes is in a league where you get, a point deduction for each sack.
A
couple
couple
probably
points,
like
I think,
negative 5 or something like that.
So you guys are not merely going to ignore the executive exodus at Washington. You're not even going to concentrate on the focus of the
negative
team on the
points,
field.
Dan.
You're just going to analyze what it did to your fantasy team.
No, to Mike Fuentes'
is
fantasy team.
okay.
Maybe if they had stability, in that front office, somebody would have said Carson Wentz shouldn't be the plan.
Negative 13 executives.
Maybe they should have more executives playing fantasy, deciding who their quarterback should be so they can have value at the big thing. They seem to have wide receivers. They seem to have plenty of those.
Well, he's not using them.
Also, I know that they won in part because of like a very shady personal foul and sportsmanlike in that Kansas City game, but the sample is starting to grow on Indianapolis's quarterback strategy over the last few years, and I'm not a fan.
Start 0-2 with an old guy and then win a bunch of games.
Yeah. Okay, this guy was good 4 years ago, and he's available to us. Let's go all in on this. There's always a reason.
I love
for
this.
That.
He beat Patrick Mahomes yesterday.
No, but okay, there it is. The win-loss again.
Matty Ice.
Kelsey dropped a touchdown.
He is going to
1-1-1.
It is hitting the knee of a patient in the doctor's
left about
office.
17 points on the field yesterday.
His analysis is only going to be: did it win or did it not win?
1-1-1, Dan.
Yeah, there was 1 week where we couldn't answer the question. The question of both was: it did not win and it did not lose.
1-1-1 in the AFC South. I mean, you're right there. Every team's in the mix. I mean, it's amazing.
Matt Ryan has tied Davis Mills, got shut out by Trevor Lawrence and company, and beat Patrick Mahomes. NFL makes no sense.
That was a bad pick by Davis Mills. The end of that game yesterday. Oh, Houston could have been in first place.
As it was tipped. Relax. It was tipped.
Tip drill? Sorry.
Did you guys feel the same thing rise inside of you anytime the red zone showed Bears Texans?
Yes. Yeah.
I was cursing at my TV. It was hard to look at. With that field and those uniforms.
Get them all out of here. I know they're not good enough. None of them. Get them all out of here.
So much Navy on my screen.
Get them all out. Bring me the slow Chargers in the 4 o'clock window. Get all of brush the 2020. Don't keep playing overtime football. All of you out of here. Somebody throw an interception. Get me out of here. I don't want this game interfering with the rest of what my Sunday is.
If I don't have a bet, a single solitary bet on your football game, that is an indictment.
And then an unrewarding push at the end because it's Bears.
Well, you buy that half point
Bears
down, Dan. I got to figure it out. 2.5 Bears at home.
The big Bears controversy from last week with Justin Fields. Did you guys?
No,
we did talk about it.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
The fans putting it in the
means more to me than it does to you.
You were off that day.
Oh, that's a bummer. Well, he had 8 completions this weekend. So.
They don't throw the ball. They're just, we're going to run it 77
times. You don't have
times.
to throw the ball.
The Bears.
Why not just not throw the ball?
There might be several drives in the NFL where a quarterback had more than 8 completions on a single drive. Josh Allen.
Think about the things that we're talking about where we're saying nerd ball is taking over and precisions, and the Bears are like, we're not going to throw it. And the Colts are like, we're going to come after you with one of the old guys being really expensive at quarterback. Like we're going to see what Frank Reich does for us and grinding it out, maybe giving it to Taylor 400 times a game. And then they could have won the Super Bowl last year. Doing it that way.
This year.
Could have done it and might do it in a bad division. Unless, of course, Stugotz is 2-week-old late analysis of look out for the Jags is right.
He's good. Roll him out. Trevor Lawrence. I'm telling you, Dan, if he fades back, he's not that kind of quarterback, and Urban should have known that. He's a guy you got to get out of the pocket, have him move around. He can make all the throws.
Urban didn't even know who Aaron Donald was.
You can't help but envision Trevor Lawrence on a white stallion. Why didn't they know before to just roll him to his right? Flowing hair. Get him a little more time and he'll throw it sidearm. Why couldn't Urban figure that out? Instead, now he's on Fox's big show and they're making sign rules that don't allow over the weekend for any signs to insult Urban Meyer or play with Urban Meyer because Urban Meyer's going to get back in the game with 2 career Jags wins.
I don't get that. So is that because they don't want to hurt his feelings, or it's just a blanket?
Probably 'cause he asked
they're going
for
to
it.
be too inappropriate, so we can't allow any.
I'm guessing Urban to Dan.
Well, you can't have inappropriate signs. It can be, you can put the rule at inappropriate and not Urban signs. I'm guessing Urban doesn't want signs. Urban's trying to sneak as the 5th analyst to the better next job, whatever it is. Like, he doesn't want a big scene of Nebraska fans chanting his name so people are talking every week about remembering. We're still too close to the fire of this guy is still echoing laughter as a joke professional coach.
I told you guys last season you were very down on Trevor Lawrence, and he was playing very poorly. And I said that the organization that drafted him first overall has failed him with this coaching hire. This is not the player that we saw in college win national championships, the player that was a Heisman finalist. He needs support from the staff. He needs support from the front office. And this year, they gave him that. And last year, I think you throw all those stats out the window. It's a football cliche, but anything that happened while Urban Meyer was the coach should not count.
If you
Should
can fix Josh Allen, you can fix Trevor Lawrence.
In a division with Davis Mills.
Precisely. That dude that bet Jags $88,000 on Jags to win the AFC South. Wow.
Looking good.
And that's the difference. The coach, the Urban Meyer.
I mean, why not get a coach that won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles?
They got him a weapon too. I mean, he has
overpaid
Travis
for one.
Etienne's back. Like, he has
James Robinson playing very well.
Yeah, he has more on the offense this season to work with. But I also think that when you are a rookie in the NFL and there's that level of dysfunction happening around you and you're still trying to get your footing as a professional athlete, it's probably very difficult to have any sort of rhythm or to just feel comfortable in that role when there's an actual dumpster fire happening in the front office behind you.
We will talk more football, I imagine, but I don't want to wander too far away from Tom Hardy winning jiu-jitsu tournaments, plural. The actor, I don't think his name is actually Tom, right? It's a different name.
His name is Bane.
I think it might just be Ed.
It is Ed.
I think he just changed
Ed Hardy.
it.
You can understand why he changed it.
Yeah.
But the other...
Also, a dude named Ed Hardy taking up MMA is so cliche.
Is it indeed Ed, though? I'm not.
Yes.
So it's Edward. His name, he changed...
Edward Thomas Hardy.
Edward, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But the other thing I wanted to talk about, because I don't want to allow football to swamp all of this out. The Udoka stuff was covered in a way, Stugotz, and we talk a lot about coverage around here, and we don't care so much, it doesn't seem, when people are compromised on coverage. But there were a number of things around the coverage of the Udoka scandal that I found unpleasant and irresponsible. And one of them that made me uncomfortable was Stephen A. Smith going debate show, my show on that topic, on the optics of that topic, as we discuss men in power, men controlling things, men creating bad environments consistently for women, so much so that you don't care that Washington has 13 executives out in the last 18 months because Commanders football is here and Wentz is here and we can argue about fantasy points. But the Udoka stuff showed you a lot of things unpleasant about our business. And Malika Andrews calling in to the Stephen A. show and Stephen A. saying, not on my show, when it'd be decent to listen to people right now, given how many hostile environments men have created for women over time. Unpleasant, with blind spots, because we shouldn't have been trusted with the power. We don't deserve it. We treat it as something that is ours from privilege and belongs to us, and we don't listen when others try to correct us, and certainly not in the atmosphere of debate television, when it might be a time to listen. I didn't like falling on the argument tropes when Malika Andrews is trying to talk to you, as the coverage around this is sloppy everywhere.
I think I'd rather hear from Malika Andrews on that than I would Stephen A. Smith, to be honest with you.
Regardless, she was calling in and look, there was Malika Andrews was calling in and saying that that Stephen A. Smith was partaking in some blaming of the victims. It's not how I heard it, but I wanted to hear Malika Andrews' viewpoint, and it became a not on my show argument, and I just didn't want debate television there. I wanted an explanation journalistically of why ESPN botched that story on the front end to create so many problems, because Woj is reporting a report that is just sloppy in the details that allows the internet to internet. And journalism isn't supposed to be the internet interneting. There's supposed to be a different standard there, even if it's entertainment television and debate television. And I just wanted, hey, can we have a reasonable conversation around what is happening around Dudoka? And what she's arguing for that was so controversial is, hey, we don't have all the facts here yet. How about we get all the facts? Like, that's not a controversial thing to argue. How about we get properly informed here before we go having immediate takes everywhere on something that is really unusual, because a championship-worthy coach of the Celtics seems like should have been fired by whatever happened there, but they chose a year, and I don't know why it's a year. It's a mystery to have a year. We can wait to find out more details on the reporting.
I can also understand why First Take doesn't necessarily take a wait and see approach, given the culture that is surrounded that show, where they have to have a take. And I think that's a lesson here, especially in instances like these. Our takes age gracefully, thankfully, because I work with Jess, and Jess has changed my prism. It's also a good argument for a diverse workplace, to know that power dynamics exist. And yeah, Stephen A. Smith, who's made a hell of a career in giving takes, fell on the wrong side of that. And I can understand where Stephen A. Smith was I was giving takes based off of the reporting that I had in my disposal. Shams detonated a bomb, and 36 hours later, some of the variables changed. With the situation like this, you kind of have to anticipate variables changing, though, because of the nature of the story.
Again, though, I don't, man, do you know how annoying it is? I hear myself, and I hear the audience getting annoyed at me with, Dan, really? Always going to talk about journalism principles? Always going to talk about journalism principles. But when you report the story that way on the front end, that flimsy, Stugotz, because the pressure to be first gets the insiders $9 million and $7 million a year, and they control all the coverage of what it is that you're doing. Do you realize what an egregious thing that is to have that land on women in the Celtics organization who did not ask for any of that, and flimsy reporting to bring it because an entity that's in partnership with its teams and league is reporting that way about something? I think the details on this shit matters.
But what do you do with what Mike said? Because Malika Andrews is more of a journalist right now than Stephen A. Smith is, and she wants all the facts to come in, and she's right. But Stephen A.'s job, then, it's a debate show, and Stephen A.'s job is to give a take with whatever information he has.
No, Stugotz, but the take is allowed to be, I don't know sometimes, and I can be quiet, and I can listen here. I don't always have to be doing show. I've seen him fake hockey stuff when he's talking to somebody, and he brings the bombast up to a level when he doesn't actually care about
NBA,
it that
though.
much.
He's going to speak on NBA with authority.
But this isn't NBA, though. This is no, but this is an NBA subject matter, but this is workplace that has been run by men for a long time.
Right. That's fair.
No, his point was this stuff has been going on a long time. So he started hitting it up with racial aspects too. Why do we know about this? And the part that Malika Andrews took exception to, which I think in a vacuum, Stephen A. does have a point. Like, you know Udoka's business, and because you don't know the consensual relationship that he had, you've now opened the door for a bunch of victimizing. I thought Brad Stevens got a lot of applause for his press conference that he didn't necessarily deserve. While he was wagging his finger, yes, we all have to be better. Shame on Twitter for trying to dox all these women and dragging all these other women into it. They also needed to get out in front of it. They fomented this environment. As soon as a story breaks, you need to act swiftly with the punishment, and then we leave room. There's always going to be room for skepticism and scrutinization afterwards. But what the Boston Celtics did in their approach after it leaked, maybe there's a reason for it that they cannot say. We had 36 hours of everybody losing their minds with one word, consensual. And all these women got dragged into it. And I think that the Boston Celtics also have a bit of a responsibility in that.
What do you do with Kevin Frazier being among the reporters out there, formerly of Entertainment Tonight, formerly of ESPN, reporting certain details that are everyone's interested in the mystery of this, Stugotz, because it's scandalous in a way that has a sexual undercurrent. It's not just, it has all of the elements, this story. You've got scandal, you've got gender, you've got race, you have winning, you have storied franchise.
You have a Hollywood starlet that has about 100% rating with Black America right now that is playing into the social media aspect of all this. Kevin Frazier, you said formerly of Entertainment Tonight. I know he's like a co-founder of an entertainment website. I mean, it's safe to assume that there's an entertainment angle of this, and Nia Long has her own publicist and marketing team that's probably putting some stuff out there too, because she's been dragged into this.
But what do I do with reporting on this as we try to wait out details? And Kevin Frazier is a credible reporter with sources, and he's saying, according to sources, he's giving the internet some of the chum that it wishes to have in the mystery that has been welcomed by allowing us into this bedroom with all of this reporting, investigation, and scandal, and the unusualness of a year Stugotz suspension from where? Like there must be stuff here that is pretty damning, because I don't understand how you go, what the next step has to be between a year and fired. I assume lawyers. I assume you don't want to start welcoming all that. You want to give the possibility so that this can quiet down. I assume lawyers got involved because the Celtics know how touchy whatever this is. But what do we say about the details in public, given that it's okay to wait for investigation, for reporting, when a Kevin Frazier is out there giving you the details on how the affair was learned about, etc.?
It's all data for us to take in, and I think scrutinizing some of the reporting is fair. It's still not at a point where I'm comfortable making a take on it. There's still so much to learn. I think the last week has shown us certainly do not rush in with a take in this circumstance. I think learn from mistakes of others. I know David Sampson walked a tweet back. Matt Barnes took down a tweet after 2 minutes after hearing from someone he alleged in the Celtics organization that said this is a lot messier than any of us know, and a lot of lives have been impacted by this.
Why would we assume, if it's a year-long suspension, that it would just be, what, consensual relationship? What's the big deal? When a year-long, are people assuming in reaction to Me Too that there are going to be over-punishments? Like, are the people assuming that all of these things are going to become political, and that how can you assume that an NBA coach was wronged when he gets a year suspension? What has to happen before that for the assumption to be like, oh, he must have been wronged here?
What we know from the reporting so far, he's been suspended. It was a violation of team rules. He had a consensual relationship, but also 36 hours later, Shams gave us the nugget that it all stemmed from an unwanted comment. We don't know if that unwanted comment was to someone else, someone he was in the consensual relationship with. We don't know anything yet. And people are obviously going to be very private about this right now. You don't have to race to a take.
But also, who is calling it consensual? We don't know who's feeding that word to the reporter who's reporting it. I just don't think that you even need to make a take about it right now. I don't think we need to fill a certain amount of time on this show with speculation about it. Right? Like,
there's also confirmation bias, right? Because I think if you see a blue check mark and someone with the reputation of Shams, that's still an opinion, right? Consensual. It's somebody's opinion.
Yeah, but you trust his reporting, don't you?
Yes, which
you
is
trust Kevin Frazier's reporting.
I think a lot of people are learning to trust his.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
There's always an agenda attached, even with ESPN's. Look, every time Amin's in, he's told you where the biases of Woj lie. You don't know where the biases of Shams lie.
What's it going to take for you?
Sports use unnamed sources for things all the time. It's become a very common practice in sports journalism, and oftentimes it shouldn't be, because if the unnamed source is Ime Udoka's agent or Ime Udoka himself, he's going to have a different perspective on something than if the unnamed source is the woman involved in the relationship, the Celtics organization, Brad Stevens, Adam Silver, any number of other people. And we've just gotten used to taking unnamed sources at their word, and Shams and Woj at their word, according to possibly one unnamed source, who has a stake in what's being reported and how it's being reported and when it's being reported. You don't have to take that at face value.
I'd go a step further here. It's why I keep asking Stugotz the question. And when he says, well, I trust the reporting, and I would say on this subject matter, I do not, because Schefter already showed you what can happen here when he was reporting on Dalvin Cook. Like that there are compromises here being made that the public
I
doesn't
haven't given
care
a take
about.
Yet. There are certain people I just trust as journalists to get it right and do it the right way.
I'm telling you, in this,
I'm not saying they can't be wrong,
but in this sphere, they've already shown to be lacking, and this is the latest example. The coverage on this was wrong, Stugotz. It wasn't journalistically sound. It's where Twitter and the need to be first shape journalism. Journalism is supposed to start that conversation, not be so infected by the needs of social media to have it contaminated so that what happens is victims become more victims because we still trust the reporting that is compromised. It's why I keep asking, hey, what do I need to put in front of you guys before you start worrying about some of this stuff? Like how many different credibility type of things do I have to put in front of you with victims before you start saying, no, it kind of matters that it's being covered shitty?
I also am just like very curious how this works now that The Athletic is owned by the New York Times. And I know that they have harsher standards there in terms of like what reporters can tweet and things like that. And I don't know if The Athletic falls under their code of conduct or whatever, but to tweet out that nugget, whatever night that was, Wednesday night, and then say whatever it was, 18 hours later that there was an unwanted comment, and then there's still not a full story from both sides or whatever sides about what really happened, feels very, very wrong.
It does. I see how an opinion show finds itself in this trap. There are ways to just report on it. That's not really what First Take does.
But I don't know is not one of the options, right? I don't know, not enough information. It's not allowed.
I think it is, but just not necessarily, not to make excuses for them, not necessarily in that culture. And I did, while it was happening, it was a perspective from Stephen A. that was the black man's perspective. He, a black man with a huge voice, especially in that community, sometimes for good, sometimes for bad, according to Twitter mentions. And it was an interesting perspective to apply to why is this different? There's tons of white people in power that have this stuff going on all the time. Why is his suspension as long as Robert Sarver? There are interesting discussion points to be had, but it's not sexy and it's not good television to be like, we'll have those discussions in a month when we have more facts.
But you don't have to be like that. You just said why. Why is it? Now, I understand why a black man would arrive at the conclusion through a history of life experiences.
But also a black man in a position of power on his own very show, which he is not shy about telling you.
Dan, if they want to talk about it, it's because Stephen A. wants to talk about it. No producer's stopping Stephen A. from talking about it.
What I'm saying is, yes, that was the black man's perspective at a time I was not particularly interested in the black man's perspective, because the question he was asking that was the most important one is the why, and we don't have a damn answer to it. So he can't answer it with it. He can answer it with his life perspective.
He was asking the question aloud. He wasn't answering the question. He's like, why is this different? But in doing so, he also dragged the person that was having this consensual relationship, and what Malika took exception to was pointing a finger like, wait, why do you get to be in privacy? Why does a black man have to be out there in public? And that's what I think Malika took rightful exception to, which is you are pointing the finger. This is not a victim-blaming situation. We don't know if she's a victim. We don't know if she had the unwanted comment. We don't know anything. We don't know if it's actually consensual.
We also don't know, Stugotz, when she's calling in to quote-unquote my show. Stephen A. Smith is not going to be told when to stop on quote-unquote my show. That conversation could have been had in a non-debate setting in a way that might not have been as heated television or the awkwardness, but would have been more productive as a conversation. Might not have been good television. And maybe this is part of the sacrifices that get made to feed the entertainment debate monster.
But should that sacrifice be made over a topic like this?
That's what I thought. I thought
Right.
We're going to go debate show here too when we still don't have all the facts, and the question why needs to be answered. And the question why was triggered by a journalistic arm that was flimsy in its reporting that allowed all of us to apply our non-discerning, non-journalistic judgments to the why. All of it. Because now God, the whiff of sex and scandals, Stugotz, it's too much to ask the internet and journalism to behave responsibly around the whiff of sex and scandal. It's going to be jokes, and the journalism is going to get contaminated by the need of social media to have it right now.
And it's not just sports journalism, but it's also entertainment journalism, such
But no,
that it is.
yeah,
getting
that's
involved.
the thing. Like, it's treated like the same as we treat like who gets the game-winning shot in the last game of a playoff series. Like, this subject matter does not have to be talked about or debated in that way, and it shouldn't be, in my opinion.
I'll spend all night out in Venice, then make castles in the sand. Santa Monica's calling, but I'm here to cover the Rams. I'll stay in and avoid chateaus. If I booze, then I'm on Skid Row. Just one drink to begin, not like that's a big sin. Just one beer, then we're gonna go to the Super Bowl.
Now, Mike, you know we're here to cover the big game. It's a time to be professional and avoid all the temptations the City of Angels may have to offer. Ain't that right, Jess and Kate?
That's right. We're just here to ask quirky questions to grown men wearing their full uniforms without pads in a convention hall.
Oh my God, is that George Clooney? It is!
Baby one scotch at the Roxy.
Come on now!
One shot at whiskey, a go-go.
There we go! Now we're drinking to avoid temptations, but a job to do. Professionals with a drink or two. Just a thimble of gin, and then I'll be locked in. After gin, then we're gonna go to the Super Bowl. To the Super Bowl. Super Bowl.
I mean, we have been locked up for a while.
Yeah, there's no rule against covering the big game and enjoying La La Land.
Wait a minute, it's the Walk of Fame. So much to see instead of the big game. And the traffic is bad on La Brea. So come on, join me in popping tequila.
Get it!
I'm just here to drink and find Lewis Hamilton.
Hey guys, Kyle Brandt. You gonna shotgun a beer or what?
I don't feel so good. I am genuinely fucked up right now.
To the Super Bowl. To the Super Bowl. Super Bowl.
Let's do another round of shots. One more round.
It's showtime, buddy!
Racism, greed, trauma to brain and spine. And yet, I cannot look away. Heroes are dead. Science has their heads. Oh, is there no escape from here? I need to know. heaven or hell, I can't tell. It's human cockfighting. CTE prayer circles. They blackballed the black baller. They tried to end racism by stenciling it in the end zone. Billionaire boys using millionaires as toys. It's all immoral, all unethical. Ooh, the witching hour. Nothing stops the NFL. Is this heaven or hell? I can't tell. It's Urban and Snyder and Flores and Gruden, but Kyler, but Kelsey, but Cooper, but Canton. It's cheating and tanking and bounties and banking, but parlays, but face paint, but promo, but pennies.
I'll spend all night out in Venice. Then make castles in the sand. Santa Monica's calling. But I'm here to cover the Rams. I'll stay in and avoid chateaus. If I booze, then I'm on Skid Row. Just one drink to begin. Not like that's a big sin. Just one beer, then we're gonna go to the Super Bowl.
Now, Mike, you know we're here to cover the big game. It's a time to be professional and avoid all the temptations the City of Angels may have to offer. Ain't that right, Jess and Kate?
That's right. We're just here to ask quirky questions to grown men wearing their full uniforms without pads in a convention hall.
Oh my God, is that George Clooney?
It is!
Baby one scotch at the Roxy.
Come on now!
One shot at whiskey, a go-go.
There we go! Now we're drinking to avoid temptations, but a job to do. Professionals with a drink or two. Just a thimble of gin, and then I'll be locked in. After gin, then we're gonna go to the Super Bowl. To the Super Bowl. Super Bowl. I mean, we have been locked up for a while.
Yeah, there's no rule against covering the big game and enjoying La La Land.
Wait a minute, it's the Walk of Fame. So much to see instead of the big game. And the traffic is bad on La Brea. So come on, join me in popping tequila.
Get it!
I'm just here to drink and find Lewis Hamilton.
Hey guys, Kyle Brand. You gonna shotgun a beer or what?
I don't feel so good. I am genuinely fucked up right now.
To the Super Bowl. To the Super Bowl. Super Bowl.
Let's do another round of shots. One more round.
It's showtime, buddy.
It is time for Stugotz to share his game notes. No one in the media will tell you what happened better than my boy Stu.
Weekend observations. What happened there?
Computer's buffering.
Oh, no.
No, the sound isn't going off. All right, let's get it on the other computer. What's weird is that this sound's going
Thank
off.
you, Jess.
Oh, yeah,
Jessica,
Jess.
you don't want to
Give me
sign up
cover.
for that during. You
No.
want to sign up for that through food? You
Let's
don't
do
think?
it, Jess.
All right,
Weird.
That's
Hang
a
on.
big, that's
Yeah,
a
let me
big
stop-
ass.
let me
Try
stop
it
the
again.
imaging.
Try it again.
Why? Wow, we can't have simultaneous sounds now?
We'll try it again.
It is time for Stugotz to share his game notes. No one in the media will tell you what happened better than my boy Stu.
Weekend observations. Brought to you by Miller Lite. Great taste. 96 calories.
This is going to exhaust her.
Available for delivery. Dan. Thank you. Whether it was a pitcher flirting with a no-hitter or a hitter attempting to get his 3,000th hit, they became fairly routine back in our day until Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire, and Barry Bonds came along, confused everyone, divided a nation, and rendered all baseball records meaningless. But with a historic season by a cyborg in New York that we somehow have no steroid questions about, who is chasing a record that no one really cares about, Dan, make no mistake about it. Live baseball break-ins
really
are back.
Really?
I hated it, Stugotz. The Wake Forest Clemson game.
Right.
2 scoring plays.
Yeah.
I was listening to Michael Kay call Aaron Judge's at-bats on the Yes Network. The first one, he struck out looking while Sam Hartman threw an amazing touchdown pass into the end zone for a score for Wake Forest. The second time, he got walked to first while Clemson, DJ Uyunglele, 2-point conversion to tie the game late in the game.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
I loved them growing up, didn't you?
Thank you for bringing them back.
I mean, Boggs and Gwynn going for 400. Remember those times?
Mike, what's going on with your? You don't know? You don't know what's going on with systems?
I think I can cover myself with white guys just with baseball talk, so I think I'm good.
Speaking of Sam Hartman, finally starting to figure things out in his 12th season at Wake Forest.
His beard.
Oh, my God.
Oh, it's a good beard.
I'll get to that. Kent State should be ranked just for keeping it close against Georgia.
I agree. Put it on the poll, Guillermo. Should Kent State be ranked? Samford, too, for keeping it within 33 points against Georgia.
The Golden Flashes. Dan, you know what the K in Kent State stands for?
I do not.
Keeping it close. Wake Forest did what Wake Forest does. The Deeks.
What does that mean? They
lose that game every year.
It was a shootout, though. It was
a great game, but beat Clemson. I mean, once in a while, just beat Clemson.
And that's why it was so devastating to watch the stupid baseball cut-in during it. Because if I were a Wake Forest fan, of which there are several, I would be so mad to missing the end of that game, breaking all those win streaks that Clemson has on them.
You're against the baseball cut-in?
Fingertips. I absolutely despise it. And I saw some Miami fan of all people tweeting at me, are people really upset about a cut-in during a noon ACC game? Yeah, it's 2 ranked teams. And if you're watching the noon ACC game, you probably want to actually watch the noon ACC game.
It's just amazing to hear. Stugotz and I fell in love with a time in sport.
I loved them.
A time in time when baseball mattered enough to cut into whatever was happening in sports with a live look-in from ESPN. And now Jessica's out here saying, please don't get in the way of Wake's second quarter football.
I need to watch my Clemson Tigers.
It was a shootout. Sam Hartman, you were so close. 6 touchdowns is good. 7 puts you in the Heisman conversation. Maybe next year. And with you, we know there's always going to be a next year.
McAfee was so close on that. People are getting mad by McAfee on that show. They want some Pollock. He's got the chain, and McAfee is a little too shocking for what they do on College Game Day. And McAfee told you that he was going to enter the Heisman conversation. He was a touchdown from entering it.
Does he have one outfit?
Yes.
I've been trying to figure it out.
Like different colors, I think.
No, I
Same
don't
colors.
even think so. I think
Really?
it's just one blue jacket, a tank top, a black tank top underneath, sometimes a white tank top, and sneakers and jeans. Like that's it every week, isn't it?
You could tell he's like hesitant to get involved. Like he doesn't know when to speak. He feels like people don't like him on the set.
I don't see that at all.
I see it.
I don't see it. No, he's
do.
the everyman, and he's there, and he's something very different from what they've had. And when people are chanting for Pollock, it's because they want something very different than the chain and the outfit.
Dan, it's the chain. You nailed it. Nobody else there wears a chain.
But again, McAfee, too edgy for College Game Day. They want their Pollock. Again, I will say that again.
I think the crowd loves him. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, there's been, just go ahead. Go look.
There's been some blowback.
Go look. It's not, I thought it was going to be 100% applause, and maybe there is no such thing for that. He has brought indisputable energy to that show that it does. I mean, he's more energetic than the people doing that show. He just is.
Here's a theory. What if Kirk Herbstreit's paying people to go in there and root against Pat McAfee?
Interesting.
Report it. Sources.
Do it, Bill.
People are saying that may be going on.
Do it, Bill. After a conversation about journalistic credibility.
You're egging him on.
I asked him to go find sources, not just make it up.
Now, granted, I've watched the show often on mute, but there are actual chants for Pollock. I think what I've seen, I think Pat McAfee's a natural fit, and that is a very difficult show to just feel like you're a part of. David Pollock's tried to feel like a part of that show and feel natural to the viewer for quite some time. And also with McAfee, you have a very clear and obvious mascot head succession plan.
I think that the thing is McAfee just lives for the applause.
He does. He says the most obvious thing every week.
What are you doing?
I'm not being mean to Pat McAfee.
No, but just of all people, twice.
Excuse me. Listen, I know it when I see it because I do it. And what McAfee is doing is pandering to the crowd. Wherever he's at, he's pandering to that crowd. I do the same thing, but I expect more from Pat. That's all.
Than you do from yourself.
Of course, yes.
Also a late take from Stu. Chris Cody said that last week.
He said there was tension with Pollock.
Well, he said the play to the crowd thing, too.
Tone, you're so right on this. Stugotz is doing our show 10 days after we've done
This
it.
Trevor Lawrence, man, he is something. Just roll him out. Get him out of the pocket. I would give anything to have a single ounce of Josh Allen's swagger. Sam Hartman looks like Ryan Day's son. He also looks old enough to have a son of his own. Kansas can score with anyone, I think. The Jayhawks.
2 weeks old there as well.
They're 3-0.
They made the Houston receivers physically fight on the sidelines. Kansas football. There was a physical fight. Some dude didn't have his helmet on. Houston receivers fighting on the sidelines.
Dan, you know what the K in Kansas stands for?
No.
Can score with anyone, I think. Speaking of Kansas City Chiefs, schism. See that? Mahomes. Oh, he is not happy.
Wasn't it just a discussion about what to do with the clock at the end of the half?
The way you saw it.
It starts there.
Yeah. It's where all schisms start. Wait a second. Half the guys I saw on the field in Miami yesterday have to play again in 3 days. Quick turnaround.
Are we going to factor any of that in?
No.
No? Like, I'm guessing the Bills aren't going to be right for about 5 weeks. I'm guessing just the mass heat stroke. Are we not going to analyze that part of it?
Big one in Baltimore this weekend.
Jeez, Lamar Jackson around after that.
Stephen F. Austin can score with anyone, I think. The Lumberjacks. Sam Hartman. I already said that. Imagine how bad the Miami Hurricanes would be if they didn't have the assistant coach of the year, Acoy. The Canes should have played Middle Tennessee State on the road. Tyler Van Dyke. Hope you send that Herbie back. Van Dyke won the Herbie for player most likely to step up this season. Should have been the player most likely to sit down. Appalachian State. Live by the sword, die by the sword. What that means.
Stugotz, I heard him booking God Bless Football, and he's just getting people who have ever been associated with Middle Tennessee State.
I am.
He's going to become...
We're going to celebrate them, yes. All 3 wide receivers who average more than 30 yards per catch.
I thought they all averaged 80 yards a catch.
There is a pretty solid seeds of a curse with a God Bless Football. Anytime you try to give any of these programs their flowers, they end up falling on their face the next week.
Frank Reich just won his first game. He was on a year ago. He hadn't won since, and he just won his first game. The curse is over. Right, Bill? I think.
We're no one to talk about curses, given that our one of our NIL athletes, when placed in a game situation after being an NIL athlete, immediately got benched.
What the Dolphins and Bills did yesterday should be illegal in all 50 states. Mario Cristobal blew off his weekly radio show appearance with Joe Rose. Two things. The C in Cristobal stands for coward.
No.
And no one blows off Big Dog on a Monday. No one.
Stugotz was listening on the way in today.
That's great.
Except the University of Miami head football coach on a weekend that they lose a big one, which has happened quite a bit lately.
Because he's a coward.
These are the receiving stats for Middle Tennessee from Saturday. DJ England Chisholm, 2 receptions, 169 yards. Jalen Lane, 4 receptions, 130 yards. Elijah Metcalf, 1 reception, 69 yards. Those were their top 3 receivers.
I did listen to Doggy on the way in.
I wouldn't call in either if that had just happened to me. If I was going press coverage on the 1 yard line and I got beat for 99 yards, I would not call in either.
You got to face the music, Dan, win or lose. I mean, let's be honest. Joe's going to ask you the same questions regardless. I mean, who cares?
What? Give me the highlights of. So he's Tua crazy.
The Doggy after a Dolphin victory, there is nothing like it. He comes up. I haven't listened to Joe Rose in probably 3 years, but I go in this morning. The show's exactly the same. Zach Krantz is doing it with him. Joe is 5 minutes late to break, which means he's got another 5 minutes before he actually breaks. He gives you a couple of Dolphin takes, 2 best games back-to-back he's ever seen in all the time he's been covering the Dolphins, and then goes into a live male testosterone spot. I mean, that is morning radio. The Big Dog.
This is your tradition after every time the Dolphins win a big one. It's just been 3 years since they've won a big one on a Monday.
Tell me more.
Great.
Tell me more because
great.
I honestly want you to do like a chalkboard telestrator read on breaking down the Joe Rose show. He has to come in with a take today.
He said Christian Wilkins has a motor. He said someone was a ball hawk. He sold on Tua. That was one of his takes. He's finally sold on Tua. Zach's been sold on him for years. I mean,
it was just the Waddle throw.
Yeah.
It was the Waddle throw, and like we're all sold until next week, until they play with 3 days rest, and something goes wrong because that sport is hard to live through.
And then they came back from break with a little rum spot about Zach Krantz, by the way, doing a live for rum. I mean, that's because Joe's already doing another one for rum. I mean, this is morning radio in Miami. It's fantastic. They have to separate them by an hour, the spots. That's what I hear, Joe's rum and Zach's rum.
Tua's the best I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Is your testosterone low?
Took some calls. Fantastic. I'll listen again tomorrow. Where was I? Stephen F. Austin, the super rare 98 burger with a side of unimpressed. Georgia and Kent State, the rare game where the team that lost by 17 was more impressive than the team that won by 17. With a big win over the Raiders yesterday, Dan, to get themselves to 1-2 for the first time this season, and certainly not the last. Dan, the Tennessee Titans are in the mix. Oh, man.
They are?
They bounced back. Yes.
Well, what?
Well, they won.
1-2.
Yeah. Derrick Henry got it going again. Tannehill was Tannehill again. What does that mean?
It means the Raiders aren't for real.
Spoiler, Dan. So my top 5. Jeez.
Oh, really?
We're going to get to that top 5 in a second. We got funniest thing from the sports weekend to get to as well.
Death, taxes, and that Oklahoma loss. If Tua wants to win the NFL MVP, he should send the voters a tape of what the offense looked like when being led by Teddy Bridgewater. If you didn't think Tua was good then.
It really was interesting. Like, I feel like that game worked out for Tua in a lot of different ways. Shouldn't have been playing because he got concussed. One, with the great throw to Waddle, he made just an unbelievable throw. And also, we're good on Bridgewater for about 8 weeks. We've seen what we need to see there. That's about enough of that.
I guess the concussion test in the Dolphins locker room wasn't working yesterday. Both the Dolphins and the Bills deserve a month-long retreat where no one can touch them. It's serious. The Dolphins have to play football again in 2 days. It's absurd. I can't wait for that game.
Stugotz, I saw you in the parking lot of the Dolphin facility wheeze and waddle your way into the front door air conditioning. I came on here and said, Stugotz, they cannot play football. Human beings cannot play football in that weather. You were sweating on 12 steps. You took 12 steps and needed an oxygen mask. It's just it's an unpleasant heat. I'm taking 4 showers a day. I'm trying to save water. I'm dead. It's awful out. You cannot go out. You go out swamping. My dog is an air conditioning dog. Just realized it. My dog says, don't want to be out there. In, out. Get me out of that.
You know who was in but wanted to come back out? Tua. That's what a leader does. This guy, he's a warrior.
Not what Justin Herbert did. You got to win the game. You got to make that throw several times.
Congratulations to the Carolina Panthers and Indianapolis Colts for getting off the schneid. Congratulations to the Ravens for bouncing back. Lamar Jackson's right. He's not worth $250 million. He's worth at least double that. He's the best player in the NFL. He's tied for 4th in rushing.
I think he's pretty good. He won the MVP of the league.
Bleep.
Yeah.
The Chicago Bears are the worst 2-1 team of all time.
They're so bad.
Good.
They beat the 49ers in a monsoon
Yeah.
and the Texans in a game-winning field goal,
Mm-hmm.
which I expected them to miss, by the way.
Dan, Tua is a different kind of leader. He's a cute, adorable killer who kills people with kindness. What a moment yesterday after the game with Josh Allen. I mean, right after he has you right where he wants you. He beats you on the field, and then he consoles you after the game and says, it's okay that I beat you, Josh. I mean, that's so adorable.
Well, he was just holding up the waterlogged corpse
he
of
couldn't
Josh
stand anymore?
Allen, who couldn't stand up anymore and needed to physically be held up from throwing 60 times in that swamp.
How do you not love Tua, though, honestly?
He's very lovable.
But, Dan, he's given you something you've craved for and wanted for so long. Excitement down here. Like, there's excitement and optimism with this organization. That's crazy. Tua!
Yes.
Probably has something to do with Hill and Waddle, too.
It didn't have a lot to do with why they won yesterday. He did make a huge throw, but I'm pretty sure that what happened yesterday is Buffalo got really, really tired of Miami's really, really good defense.
You know what he did, Tua? He came back out. Imagine how that game ends if Tua never comes back out. You saw Teddy for 5 plays. Just imagine how that game ends.
I would ask you, as you analyze Lamar Jackson, Stugotz, to also analyze what Josh Allen could not do against that Dolphin defense. I want you to analyze what Lamar Jackson did do against that Dolphin defense.
Best player in the NFL.
He's pretty good.
Yeah, he is.
Mike has more rushing yards in this segment than Van Dyke did on Saturday, let me tell you.
Rather than give everyone on the team game balls, Mike McDaniel should have given them game IVs. Joe Flacco, after a win, looks exactly like Joe Flacco after a loss.
Yeah.
Joe Cool. $1.5 million and a free trip to South Beach to beat the holy hell out of the University of Miami. Middle Tennessee. Money well spent. Speaking of hell, Art Briles. Dan, those are the weekend observations.
And $40,000 in travel costs. Don't forget that as well.
I said the free trip to South Beach.
We are going to do funniest thing from the sports weekend in a second. We are going to do Tony's top 5 observations.
We got to write those down.
As well. You're going to write down the top 5 observations?
I wrote
Tony's
down
top
last
5
week's, yeah.
observations?
Yeah, I did. Tony, I showed you. I wrote them
Yeah,
down.
I actually have them right here on my paper.
Oh, I gave them to you.
Yeah,
I was just looking for
them on my desk.
Are you ready right now to
Always
do that?
born ready, Dan.
Is your imaging also ready right now to do that?
Of course.
Okay. Yes, this is very exciting.
All right, top 5 from week 3. There's been a couple spoilers that have been leaked out throughout the show, but that's fine.
You.
That's fine. No, Dan had one that was, number 5 actually. So here's number 5. Raiders are decidedly not back.
All right, Raiders.
0-3, not good. Derek Carr, not good.
Devontae Adams not looking.
I mean, he looked good in week 1. He had 10 for 141 and a touchdown.
He had a tutty yesterday, right?
Yeah, that was a cheap one.
Yeah.
Number 4. The Panthers and Baker are pathetic.
Wow.
Even in winning.
I've declared it. Pathetic. The red zone went to him 3 times, I think. It was the fumble for a touchdown, It was a long touchdown and something else. And that was it.
I saw that they were winning, and he had like 70 yards passing in the fourth quarter before hitting one pass. It's hard to watch.
It was one pass for 66 yards, and he was like 9 for 20 in that first half, or in those 3 quarters.
Put it on the poll, Guillermo, at Le Batard Show. Jerk or no jerk? Guy who refers to it as a tutty.
No jerk. Number 3. And this one's going to catch a little, people are going to get in their feelings about this one because of what happened last Monday night. But Kirk is still in my top 3 of guys I want with the ball in his hands under 2 minutes to go.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. With his primetime record?
Just don't do it on primetime. But if it's not on primetime, I want Kirk top 3.
Yep. Kirk Cousins.
He did it again yesterday.
Games. Yeah. I understand he did it. He did it again, but he's a week removed from you forgetting that he's the worst postseason quarterback in the history, or the worst primetime quarterback in the history of the sport.
Yes, but not my point. The point is, under 2 minutes to go.
Yes.
That's what I want.
He's one of the all-time greats Sunday around 3:35 p.m. He is. He's one of the all-time greats from 3:30 to 4 on a
Been
Sunday.
putting up a stinker all day. All of a sudden, 2 minutes left in the game, he's throwing dimes.
Put it on the poll, Guillermo. Is Kirk Cousins one of the all-time greats only from 3:30 to 3:35 on Sunday?
Number 2. Jalen Hurts for MVP.
Oh, my
Starting
God.
here, Stu will have this taken 2 weeks. Jalen Hurts for MVP. You heard it here first.
Wow.
Sorry to tell you guys. Didn't want it to be the case, but that's the case.
What do you mean you didn't want it to
Well,
be
I
the
wanted it to be
case?
the case from last year when I told you Jalen Hurts was better than Tua.
So
I got to come with something.
right? You just want to be right?
Yeah, Woody rubbed off on me there.
And number 1?
Oh, number 1. You know what number 1 is. The spoiler of all spoilers that was announced earlier today. Duval!
Jacksonville?
Oh, the Jags
So
are
it's you being
sneaky
right
good,
again.
Dano.
It's you being right again. That's obnoxious.
It's my top 5. Duval. Jags are sneaky good.
Okay,
That's
get
number
out of
1,
here.
yeah.
They are. They're good.
We will do funniest thing from the sports weekend in a second. Keyshawn Johnson has said he knows what Nebraska needs to do. Just give Urban Meyer all the money in the world.
Got it right.
It's
wrong.
There's
but he's
something that
kind
we
of
can
right.
learn.
Right.
Have so many scandals that people forget, like the one that you shouldn't be hired for.
Trump taught us.
Yeah. Just
Just
volume shoot.
just
volume
volume
shoot your
scandal.
scandals to the point of it being white noise.
I have a question about college, not to change the subject.
Mm-hmm.
Herm Edwards' staff was just trying to get him fired. Like they were just leaking information to the opposing team so he would get fired.
I feel like that's one of those that we have to wait and see on. It's
Yeah,
just so unbelievable.
The reporting on that was really weird because I read that article that was in The Athletic the day after he got fired that was like a deeper dive into what was going on the last few seasons. And there was one line in it, I think, about the staff leaking information to opponents. And that was it. And it feels like if you're going to say that happened, you kind of need like a little bit of details in that. And then that one line got posted on Twitter and was like going all viral and stuff. And I just feel like it was very vague, and I need to hear more about that. Also, did they really need to do that for Arizona State to lose games? Because we haven't been that good the last couple of seasons.
Is the reporting, what could be the reporting? I'd like to get more accurate reporting on what is and what seems to be an unbelievable story. But I do want to go back for a second before we get to funniest thing from the sports weekend. Jessica wants an even more interactive experience with her sports television, and her sports teams. She wants the option of ESPN alerting her, or the network alerting her, do you want this Aaron Judge cut in, or do you not want this Aaron, like just a menu item? She wants.
I think that's fair in 2022.
We are headed to such a wonderful, disorienting place for the customer as the streaming services figure out what's right and what's wrong and take more chances, and the streaming services realize we need to get into sports, whether it's Hulu, Apple, Amazon. So, of course, they're going to cater it more and more with changes to the customer experience. The customer is going to rule here, because if you're averaging 3 or 4 streaming services, the one that's best taking care of you on, I want all my options. I want my television experience. If I'm going to pay 4 of you streaming services, I want to watch what I want to watch. I don't want your cut-ins.
If you're into that Clemson-Wake game, which was a shootout, a great game, perhaps the game of the weekend in college football, I do believe you should have the option as to whether or not you want to stay there or go to Aaron Judge. Like when they broke into OJ during the Knicks finals game against the Rockets, I would have chosen to stay with the Knicks. I would have. I mean,
put it on the poll, Guillermo, at Le Batard Show. Would you have chosen to stay with that horrific Knicks finals games in the 80s over the O.J. Simpson chase?
They also cut into the Missouri-Auburn game, which, yeah, they're two unranked teams, but they're teams in the SEC where the fan base is watching the games. It's a close game. It goes into overtime. Brian Harsin might get fired if Auburn loses. There was a really exciting finish, and so those fans were getting angry about it too. But if you can find me a network that will figure out a way to like split screen, and instead of it baseball and football, it's football game and then a stream of TikTok, like I will pay so much money for that service. So yeah, they should be customizing it for people like me, Dan.
I believe they're going to in the future. I believe they're going, all the information that Netflix, for so many years, people were telling me Netflix is an information business as much as a television business. They know what the demographics are on their customers. They're very tight about keeping the demos.
And you know who doesn't? ESPN, because even Sean McDonough was getting annoyed that they kept cutting away from his game. He finally got to call a team, two ranked teams in that window with playoff implications on the line. If Clemson loses that game and now they got to play NC State and Florida State and potentially ACC.
Syracuse.
Yeah. Miami. Like that, they might be out of the playoff, and that's a top 5 team. Same for Wake. If Wake wins that game, now they're in the playoff hunt again. They were in the ACC championship last year. Like it was a very important game for how the rest of the ACC Atlantic and potentially the playoffs will shake out, Dan.
Just like Al Michaels is on your telecast, winking at people, saying that score might matter to some of you, as DraftKings is advertising all over the place. I believe this stuff that Jessica's talking about, even if you think it's asinine, old dudes putting Aaron Judge cut-ins in because baseball used to do that. I'm assuming it's old dudes in charge because it's almost always old dudes in charge. But you and I love the baseball cut-in, and I do believe young people are going to get to decide on their options because we object to change more than most. I believe whatever objection there is to McAfee would only be based on change. Like, there's nothing to object to there. He's not objectionable. Like, he's enjoying himself in the middle of your telecast, but people react poorly to change, and I think more and more of it's going to have to come to the broadcast because they're going to have to keep doing Dude Perfect and everything else to keep the younger generation entertained. It's not, man, look what we're doing. One football game's not enough anymore. Denver, San Francisco, you need 7 of them. You don't want one anymore. You need 7 in your TikTok and your Twitter and everything else. One's not enough anymore.
Not 7 Denver, San Franciscos, though. I mean, no one wants to see that game, right? But you need options because that game was so dreadful.
I need to object. Like, not every person is for everyone, Dan. If every person loved Pat McAfee and his personality and everything about him, why would you ever listen to anything else? But some people don't necessarily love that. They like a more toned down version of it, or maybe a little bit older version of it. Like, it's not, there's no person or personality in sports media that is going to get universal praise from everyone.
Fair enough.
Ernie Johnson.
EJ.
Fair enough. Q rating's still very high. But when I talk about old sensibilities running things, there was in the Detroit game yesterday, in the Lions game, a celebration. I'm pretty sure I saw this correctly. Williams for the Lions scored, and his celebration was straight, I'm having sex. It was sensual, it was gyrating, and it was flagged. And my wife walked by, watching the television, caring very little, and saying, what is this, the 1950s? We're objecting to Elvis thrusting his hips? Like, what are we, who's in charge that the rules are a guy scores a touchdown in a violent sport and he can't simulate something that's too sensual because the American Puritan masses get upset by a nipple on television when Janet Jackson gets banned?
I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, actually. Before you finish the sentence, I was already going to say something, and now I'm stuck on the nipple. But there was a play in the Notre Dame-North Carolina game where North Carolina scored a touchdown, and then the player spun the ball in the end zone and got flagged because that's against the rules in college football. And they brought in the rules analyst, and he was like, Yeah, I mean, that's the rule. The refs called it. You can hate the rule, but they made the right call. And I was just struck by how absurd it is that in college football you can't score a touchdown, spin the ball, and not get penalized for it.
You asked who made the
Bizarre.
rule on the gyration in the end zone, and even Scott Hansen knew it's Key and Peele. He pumped 4 times. It's the 4th pump that always gets you.
I thought it was Wellington Mara or the Mara family that made the rule on too much sensuality in my end zone is something that offends me
For the pumps,
puritanically.
it was Key and Peele.
It's a good skit.
Yeah. Even Aaron Rodgers stopped short. 4th pump.
I love that you love the name Wellington Mara so much.
Well, it's the
It's
perfect
just a
name.
great name.
Yes.
It's not even Wellington
To
anymore.
preside
But
over
it's
celebrations.
not
Yes.
Wellington is not. It's the Mara. It's the Mara clan. It's the Mara family that is making that decision, handed down from the ethos of old Wellington. And we can't have sensual gyrations in the end zone or spun footballs.
Because Wellington says
Because
so.
Wellington does not like that. And Wellington's sensibilities are the ones that govern both the Maras and my end zone celebrations that involve football teams that don't belong to the Maras.
Such a great name choice.
It is. It's perfect.
For a guy presiding over
of
touchdown
course,
celebrations.
Of course. It's your butler's name, and it's the guy you can't have making the rules on what is sexual repression. Let's do funniest thing from the sports weekend.
Hey, people, tell us what in the sport made you laugh hardest this weekend. It is a segment we call What Made You Laugh This Weekend. Ha ha ha!
Funniest thing from the sports weekend is brought to you by our friends at CBD MD.
Put it on the poll, Guillermo. Do you imagine that anyone named Wellington is a maestro in sensual acrobatics? Funniest thing from the sports weekend, Tony. What did you think was the funniest thing?
Dan, I think it was the hand that stopped short on the camera to stop Kenny Dorsey from breaking the camera off and throwing it down to the field. That was one of the greatest things I've ever seen. They just kept it there for like 10 seconds.
We didn't talk enough about Dorsey wrecking. I mean, we cannot talk enough about that and the butt punt. I mean, just everything from that game was unbelievable.
I think we should have Dorsey on to break it down for us. I think he did.
It seems like he's in a good talking mood.
I'm going to get him. I'm going to try.
Chris Whittingham vibes, right?
Yeah. I mean, it'd be funny to have him
Little
on.
evil streak
Yes,
behind
it
those
would be.
glasses.
Yes, it would be. It would be great to have him on.
I think he has a stove alarm too.
Billy, what was the funniest thing from the sports weekend?
Herm Edwards may be being sabotaged, possibly.
Again, you don't know if
I
this
don't
is
know.
true or not.
I'll let
right?
you know in a week or two if it was the case.
Can you please just give us what you believe to be, now that we're here, because I don't trust the reporting on this. Jessica, do you believe the reporting on this is sound?
I mean, I don't know the reporter, so I'm not going to doubt his reporting. It just feels like that story, I kind of want more from it. Like, which opponents? What did they give him? Did they give him, like, plays from the playbook? I need to know more. I'm very curious about all of it. And yeah, like, they didn't really need to do that to Herm. He was already majorly on the hot seat. A lot of his staff had been fired because of the NCAA stuff. You didn't really need to do that. Why risk it? I don't understand it.
We will wait for more reporting on that. What do you think was the funniest thing from the sports weekend?
The butt punt.
It was so good.
Slow motion, sped up. Give it to me every way. The butt punt. The personal protector, Dan. What a nerdy name for a football position.
I
Butt
want
punt.
to do the show where we are reacting simply and only to Miami loses the game on that play. I want to do a whole nother alternate show where we just do 35 minutes of what would the appraisal of the Dolphins and Tua and McDaniel had been if the last few minutes of that game.
No faith in Tua. He would have gotten the ball back, man. Taking him down the field. Oh.
But it would have been, it changed the game. It changed the end of the game. And if Josh Allen could just get his shit together for 2 more snaps and set up that field goal instead of dying in the Miami Heat.
He had nothing left. I mean, he had 2 yards left. They needed
Miami
5.
almost butt punted themselves into a division loss.
If you want to remember and celebrate the butt punt, you could head over to lebatardaf.shop where we have ceremonialized the butt punt.
Nice.
Please put them on the poll. Put all of these things, Guillermo, at Le Batard Show on the poll. Because I want to know what was the funniest thing from that game yesterday. Was it the butt punt? Was it Josh Allen in a game of such precision, 60 passes in, just farting that ball out there in a way, the guy's open, we're used to the precision, you've thrown 60 times. That throw that way in that situation was just such a disaster.
Also, Kenny Dorsey has to be an option.
And Kenny Dorsey has to be an option too. Funniest thing from that game. Is there anything else to be chosen from the ridiculousness of that game?
It's my funniest thing from the sports weekend, the Teddy Bridgewater drive.
The bubble screen thrown poorly with noodle-armed precision.
I think it might win, Teddy Bridgewater.
You're not going with Middle Tennessee's football's Twitter account trolling Mike Ryan, Stu? I thought you were going to pick that one.
Nah.
I'm not either. It's not funny. That was very mean of them. Very, very mean.
Mike Ryan,
Bring it in tight.
Mike loves that, though. I think Mike likes that.
I like losing in Middle Tennessee. I love it. It's my favorite.
You like them coming after you lose, too.
No, I don't.
Yeah,
No bad press.
I mean, come on, Mike.
No, I don't like it.
You like freezing cold takes being featured.
No bad press.
No. Super follow at Michael Ryan Ruiz to see exactly how I process that loss, and go to lebatardaf.shop to immortalize the butt punt merch already up there. My funniest thing of the sports weekend was, you've seen this occasionally in baseball, the baseball stare down after the national anthem. There was an epic one between the Royals and Mariners. Luke Weaver and Robbie Ray had a stare down. Not the first time Robbie Ray has done this, by the way. They're just standing out on their dugout steps, looking at each other, seeing if one person will bow out. This one goes on painfully long, so long that the umpires get involved and ejected both of them. At the end, Robbie Ray still undefeated, never lost. You have to check out this video. Both players got ejected for refusing to break their stare down. That is male pride if you've ever seen it.
The opposite of it, I would say, is what I saw from Mac Jones yesterday, trying to fake and flop his way into a call on the sidelines by pretending like he'd been hit late, Stugotz, to try and get 15 extra yards with all of the dumb rules in this sport. He tried to sell the referees with a flop on, I'm playing a different sport than everyone else here who's allowed to be tackled. I'm the quarterback. The rules are different for me. This is pathetic. Watch me try and get 15 yards by flopping my arms out. I also wanted to point out, as we talk about Ken Dorsey losing his mind, it has now been reported by Adam Schefter and others that Tom Brady 2 weeks ago broke not one but two tablets in his rage on the sidelines at not being able to win by more than 10 points.
He said his username and password weren't working.
But now he's broken two of these.
Darn this two-factor!
I don't think that
one special character.
I deleted the authenticator app.
One number, one capital letter. Why?
The ampersand.
Just want to see if it's cover 3.
7 Super Bowls with a $ sign for the S, damn it.
7 rings, 1 capital Z.
Why did he go with the hard password? I think that story falls apart, though, when you're breaking two tablets, isn't it?
He forgot his mother's maiden name on the second one. First pet, damn it! So long ago.
Again, though, you realize in the frenzy of the football Sunday that we just skipped past a 45-year-old who couldn't get any offense all game. Had Rodgers backpedaling like, oh, he's going to get the 2-point conversion, and then it's going to be an onside kick, and he's going to come down from 28-3. I don't know how it's going to happen, but it all ends with him at 45 years old winning at the end. It is crazy, correct? Sheer insanity.
That Brady's still doing this?
He got called back for a holding.
5 years old.
Did you see the scramble that Tom Brady
12-yard
had?
scamper.
Pocket presence where he broke his leg brace?
Yep.
Forrest Gump. I mean, come on. It's the only time his age shows is when he scrambles out of the pocket.
I'm sorry. I'm seeing the Mac Jones play for the first time.
It's so absurd. Mac Jones
He jumped.
It's so.
Then he threw a pick in the end zone, like right after that.
They got hurt.
And then there was a report that he was screaming in pain in the locker room, but then all the x-rays came back negative.
Ligament damage.
What was the last play of the game,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Sometimes you'd rather break the ankle.
High ankle sprain, yeah.
Uncertain what's happening.
How do Patriot fans feel, though? Even in a loss, looking down at Tampa as they fall to 2-1, and Brady's just out there grinding it out with the remains of what was the Patriot roster at the end when he was throwing pick sixes against Tennessee. And they got Mac Jones and Lamar Jackson going toe-to-toe, and Mac is flopping to try and get 15 extra yards while Lamar is running 60 extra yards without the flopping.
The biggest challenge, I think, of Bill Belichick's career is when the game is going a little sideways and you need offensive answers, and now you're down to your backup quarterback. The camera will pan to Matt Patricia calling your next offensive play. He needs to have you buy in and have faith that that is a good thing, and it is a tough road to hoe right now.
Mike, when the end of the game goes with Brady at 45, marching down the field with no weapons, and he hasn't done anything all game, and he scores anyway. And then you're looking at New England. It's not just Patricia. Wait a minute. They're letting his son closer to things over there, too. And his son's a freak show. And, like, wait a minute. What was in charge in New England?
Normalize the mullet, man. You just called the man a freak show. Just because I
think it's his facial things.
Mouth.
Yeah,
that's what he
what
does with his mouth.
Yeah.
It's what he does with his mouth. I'm just saying that Belichick.
Cocaine mouth.
Belichick.
What?
Who said
what are
that?
you guys
Who
doing?
said that?
I didn't do that.
Said that?
I did not do that.
This is what
Tony,
happens
go
when you
sit
let
in the
him-
pounding
Yeah.
box.
Oh, come
Tony,
on.
go
That
sit
was
in the
so
pounding
good.
box.
No
Go
more
sit in the
random
pounding
journalism
box.
from the
Go
show.
sit in the pounding
Wow.
box. You
Reckless
can't accuse him.
speculation. No,
Get
the-
out of here.
Billy's mortified.
Evan McPherson? The GOAT? He's a kicker. I mean, Tom Brady's bed's still warm. Tom Brady just left.
You're the greatest of all time. You're the greatest of all time.
He's beautiful in every way. It's out of control.
He throws the ball most accurately and won 7 rings.
So good at backing. He's meant to have decade teams.
A 6th-round draft pick with a chip on his shoulder and a dimple on his chin.